Welcome back to another Women's Disability Show. I'm your host for the day, Brianna Wheeler, and we're back. Oh, I said that backwards. And we're back on the and we're excited. We're going to get into just forming our new identity and kind of how we transform after our injury. And that's what today's topic is going to be about. So feel free to follow us along, drop some comments if you feel like it, and we'll make sure to answer them along. So my name is Brianna. I've been injured for 8 years now from gun violence, and I live in Los Angeles, California.
My name is Maya Hendricks. I am a C5, C6 quadriplegic, and I've been injured for 6 years due to gun violence, and I live in Los Angeles.
Let's go to Jessica.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Brito. I am a C7 incomplete. I've been injured 14 years and I live in the Inland Empire.
Yes. And we'll make sure to pop the comments on the screen. Shawn, I can't see them again, just to let you know in the background. So thank you, Grandma and Leah, for popping on and saying, hey, we love you guys so much. So we're going to get right into our questions. How long into your injury do you realize that you were forming a new identity, and what triggered those thoughts to even come to your mind? Jessica, let's start with you.
A new identity. I think that it was probably about, I want to say almost 2.5 years after, when I started becoming more independent. I realized that, although I was still very much myself, I started noticing that I had already began to be more patient, more easygoing with the flow, as opposed to being so controlling and rigid, although I'm still pretty controlling, but definitely a shift. Yeah, probably once I started becoming more independent, I could see how I handled situations differently than I would when I was able-bodied or younger.
I can totally relate to that. I feel like it was until like 2.5 years out when I joined the community and I started seeing the shift in perspective in my mind and getting around other people and kind of seeing how they got through it and realizing like that my old tools or habits like weren't gonna cut it for now the new life that I want to live. And that's when I really saw myself changing a lot. I remember it took me probably like a year and a half or so to even recognize that I had to become a new person, or I was becoming a new person. I was having to think differently. And I remember that scared me. And I prevented it for a little while. I was still hanging around with the old people and still trying to have the same mindset that I did before my injury. And it wasn't getting me anywhere. I was still really depressed. I wasn't like pushing myself as much. And I wasn't able to accept this injury the way that I was once I was okay with forming this new identity of myself. And I think that comes from a lot of like comfortability in who I was before. That was kind of hard for me. What about you, Maya?
I think for me, it actually happened pretty early on because with my story, prior to my injury, I was in my addiction. So pretty much immediately, like in the hospital, I felt really grateful that I was alive because I thought I was going to die. Like I was looking around, I saw no hope in being saved, with where I was. So just realizing like the grace of God and how He saved me, how He orchestrated some people to save me and kept me alive until they were there, helped me just begin to change my identity and realize that I couldn't live the way that I was living anymore, that I didn't want to be that person. And I was also confused because everything was going to be different and I didn't know what my new normal was going to be, but I was just trying to like put my faith in the Lord, and that was completely different to the way that I was operating before, because that was just controlling myself. That was just acting out of just my addiction and my pride and just doing like ridiculous things, so being able to actually put my faith into God instead of just continuing to try to be that same person was the first big shift in my identity.
Yeah, that's really. And do you feel like you went through a grieving process for your old self, and what did that feel and look like for you, Jessica?
It's really weird. I think that I held on to that part of me for a really long time. And I think part of shifting wasn't just my injury, but it was also getting older. Um, I think that for a really long time, my personality is very loud and friendly. I talk to a lot of people. I still went out, did everything like I used to. But I think letting go of control was the biggest thing. And I think there was a mourning period. A lot of it in the beginning, the grief was I was always the one that did everything for everyone. And I was very much, oldest sister in charge and taking care of whatever needed to be done. And it kind of felt like I had been a caregiver before my accident, so sometimes it was feeling like if I was here and the person injured was someone else in the family, then I would take care of everything, right? And so grieving the fact that I wasn't the one that was going to be doing the caring and learning how to be there for others in a different way, but definitely a grief on having the ability to take charge physically, right? To just get up, even simple things like cook, clean, do all those things. I have ADHD, so I would get really inspired and I could clean for hours and jump and run and not being that person anymore was pretty hard. So the grief at the beginning was more about grieving my motor abilities, and as I got older, it was grieving, some of that silliness, I guess, and some of that just being more carefree because I do obviously have to be more mindful of what's going on with my body. What am I doing next? And that was really hard for me too, grieving the spontaneity of things. I know that in the community, I'm seen as one of the more on the spontaneous, reckless side, right? I don't plan as much as all my other friends. Like I've said before, as long as I have catheters, But even that, like, I have to carry a catheter with me everywhere. I don't even carry a purse. I forget my purse. I forget my keys, and having to just have more structure. Even my bowel program, like I fought it so much to have structure because it's like, why can't I just go when I want or do it when I want, if I don't, right? So grieving that spontaneity and learning that, yes, I still have it up to some degree, but I do have to be responsible on some things.
Yeah, that was so
Yeah.
well said. I feel like I can relate to a lot of things that you went through and that you experienced a lot. And it was definitely that creating that independence for me was really hard. Same, I was the one who took care of things in the family. So now I'm like, now what are we gonna do? Like, and everything that I saw and heard was like, rely on your support system. And I was like, what support system? Like, how can you rely on unreliable people? And that was extremely hard for me to accept, to say that like obviously people were annoyed with helping me in the beginning, and I think that was really hard for me because I was like, if I could just do it myself, I wouldn't need to ask you for anything, and I wouldn't be asking you for anything,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. And that hurt me. Like in the beginning I was refusing to transfer, I was refusing to do any my care by myself. Like the first 2 years I really fought this injury a lot, and I feel like a lot of that was grieving my old self. I would look at pictures, I would remember like memories. I would be watching TV and I would black out on my thoughts, and when I would finally realize I was doing that, I would rewind, and I would be rewinding like 40 minutes of the TV where I literally have no memory, but I was watching it, and that's how like blanked out I was. And that's when I realized like it wasn't just physical. My mental was broken at that point, and like I needed to do something to heal that. And I didn't know where to start. I still felt so overwhelmed, and I feel like I was so comfortable with the person that I was. Like I said, that letting her go and letting her hopes and dreams go. I was such a like planning for a future type of person. I knew what I wanted to be in life. I knew what I wanted to go and out and get. And all of a sudden you're telling me none of that is possible, you know? And I didn't know the community neither. So I was fighting the healthcare system. I was fighting doctors. I was fighting my family. You know, it was just so much of new things, and that was very difficult for me as well. I feel like that person that I was longing for in those pictures, it's crazy when I look at those old pictures of me now because I I don't see like the fun times that I was going out and like such great times. I see a completely different person that is broken, honestly, that needs a lot of healing, a lot of growing to do. And like those happiest moments that I thought were in my life, like, no, more honestly, happier and precious moments have come after my injury when I think about it, you know? And like those are like the memories when I'm thinking back to my happy days. It's not when I was walking, honestly. Like very few memories are from when I was walking. The majority are like now the relationships that I've made, who I am now, you know? And my brother has asked me before, like, would you take it all back to walk again? And I'm like, no, how can I? I'm a completely different person because of how much I've had to strive to keep pushing after my injury, you know? And I just remembering like it wasn't easy. I wrote like letters to my old self. I was just saying like how much I hope that I'm making my old self proud of me, proud now of who I'm going. And I said like thank you to my old self. And that was really healing for me because I was just like, thank you for all you did and for fighting through. And I hope that as proud as I am of you, you're proud of me now. And that was extremely healing. It gives me goosebumps like just thinking back to it because I needed to break those ties. It's not saying goodbye forever. You know, I just need to focus on the new me so that I can improve now and focus like it focusing on behind and my past and my old self wasn't doing nothing. I wasn't moving forward. I had to look forward and start thinking about my new normal. And as much as it hurt, you know, it was needed, and I'm so grateful that I did accept that. Like things are going to be different now. Once you kind of accept that, it's a little bit more easier because you're just like not judging yourself so much. You know, we're so hard on ourselves. But just like Jessica said, like if this happened to somebody else, like I'll be right there motivating them, helping them, getting them through, figuring out the next step. Why can't I, you know, I need to also motivate myself and tell myself, wait, I can do it. And I think if putting yourself in like if a person that you loved was also injured and you had to think of what you would tell them, that would be a good way to determine what you would tell yourself because that is your inner self. We can't let those negative emotions like get us down and bring us down from them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe
Snap. But I think for me, the grieving process didn't happen until 2 years into my injury. I was very, like I said earlier, I was super grateful for my life. You know, I woke up, I was like, okay, new identity, new me, like forget that person. And I meant that for those 2 years, you know, and I just focused on my physical therapy. I started going back to college, like just immediately. And I didn't give myself the time or the space to grieve or to think about the person that I used to be and to actually let her go. And it came to the point where like I just had a complete breakdown and I had no idea what was wrong. And I was just so stressed and I felt so sad. And I realized that that was because I didn't take the time to let her go. So I also wrote the letter to my old self, and that was so healing for me. It was such an amazing experience. If you haven't written one, like I think you should write one, regardless if you feel like you're struggling with your old self or not. Like you'll come up with some things that you didn't even know were there, and it's like it's just an amazing process. But for me, that process just hurt, and then I was sad that I waited 2 years to do it. You know, I was like, I could have just done this before, but I wanted to go, and that was the type of life that I was living before. So I realized that those pieces of me were still there, and I've had to figure out like how to cope with those pieces and also how to create structure for those pieces of myself, like Jessica was mentioning too.
Yes, I love that. Let's look inside the chat really quick. Hi, Nikki. I miss you and love you so much.
Yes,
It
you.
really helps us appreciate it. Daryl, hello, hello. What is some of the advice you ladies would give to other women on self-acceptance? Ooh, that's a good one. We'll go back to that really quick. Brianna, you've come such a long way, and people should know what a leader you've helped become. Oh, thank you, Mickey. I really appreciate that. That's from somebody coming that really saw me when I first joined the community, coming into the support groups, and how much I have grown from the community over the years. And like, I think I got to experience that during the World's experience because there's so many girls like, I don't know anybody. I don't feel comfortable. And I'm like, keep on coming. They're like, how? I wish I could just be like you. It would be a lot easier if I was just like you. And I'm like, I rolled into these rooms thinking the same thing. Like, I was lost. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know what I was going to do. And just by like, keep on coming and making friends and trying to grow, and the growth happens. Like have become this person by doing that. So it's so hard to explain sometimes to really into people, that you just got to keep on believing in yourself and going. Okay, so let's go to the advice question on self-acceptance. What would you say, Jessica, for giving ladies some advice on self-acceptance?
I think taking inventory, I think if you sit down and just look at all the things you like, all the things you do on a daily basis, all the things you want to do, you might find out that you actually like yourself more than you thought. I think that a lot of times the problem with self acceptance is that you aren't taking the time to really be aware of the person that you are. And we get stuck on what we should be, that we don't realize, like, oh, I do like this person. And not to say that there isn't always room for growth, right? That's why ask yourself, what do I want to continue to be achieving and doing? And even you might say, oh wow, I like the person that sets those goals, right? And just taking a moment to really look at yourself and who you already are, you might be surprised, and it might make it a little easier to get to self-acceptance.
Definitely trying new things. I feel like that's a big one too. For me, self-acceptance after my injury was really hard, but I feel like when I think about it, it came from really like trying new styles again. I was very stuck in the way that I dressed and what I thought was like my style and what fashion I went for. And honestly, like my clothes didn't fit me the same way, and that made me feel very insecure as well. I remember like even like wearing like huge hospital like scrubs when I first got injured, and like just big shirts and like nothing like this, nothing cute. I had thrown all my old clothes away. I did not want to look at myself in a wheelchair. But I feel like looking at myself more and more, I was able to tweak little things to learn how to love myself again and be like, wow, even if I took 99 bad pictures, this one picture I really love out of the 99. And it's hard to be like, wow, none of these pictures are great. You have to like go one, you have to think you look better in one of them at least. So I feel like just discovering that like really helped me in my self-acceptance. And yeah, what would you say, Maya?
I would say like taking a list and writing down like what you're grateful for. Gratitude lists about myself and about like my surroundings were something that really helped me. I had like this little journey that I went on where I just was trying my hardest to stay consistent with writing gratitude lists every day, and like that honestly had a huge shift in the way that my mental health was, and I would recommend it for anybody.
I like that a lot. I just remembered like a thing that I did because I saw this thing that said it takes 20 days to change a habit, and I was like, interesting, let's try this out. So like every single day I got up, I read what my goals were for the year, I wrote a gratitude list, and I would just journal. And I was not a journaling girl before, but then I was like, you know what, let's take away those things that I decided that I was or wasn't before my injury, and now decide something new. And a lot of times it's hard because people reference that in able-bodied world as like, wait, you're being fake, you switched up, you know? But no, you gotta switch it up sometimes. But we ain't the same people. We're growing. We're becoming adults. You know, you're even getting older. You're gonna learn new things. Like honestly, even my taste buds have changed. I used to hate barbecue, and I still get ridiculed by my brothers for now I eat barbecue. Like, I'm like, let it go. I didn't like it, and now I do. What do you want me to do about it? You know, you just gotta own that and try definitely new things. Sometimes it's like, oh, I was a basketball player before. My whole identity was basketball. That's all I can do. That's all I know how to do. I refuse to do anything else. That's why I hate life. And it's like a part of that is trying new things and some things that you never thought that you would be interested in. Maybe if you never got injured, you wouldn't have been. But the new person that you are now should try new things, you know, try some photography, try even bird watching. I hear bird watching, they be catching people. Some people are just like, I fell in love with it. They just love it so much. I'm not a fan of the chirping. I like the birds, but the chirping is not my favorite. I tried it, you know, and there's been lots of other things I've tried, and that becomes my new hobbies, and that makes me feel proud of myself. And it's like even little art projects I really love doing because it just makes me feel creative, and yeah, that helped me in my subject. That notification is blocking our chat.
Like notification.
Sorry guys, 1 second. It's not going away in my end.
Okay, there we
go. Okay, sorry. Let's back up. I miss writing. I did it initially for people asking about how I was doing. As I became more active, I stopped writing. I'll resume the blog since it's good to watch the growth. That's not always about. I agree. I think watching the growth is really important. That's another thing that like was big for me in the beginning. I would record myself and I would watch it back because sometimes you can't see the progress in yourself. And I even think journaling, sometimes you just like, I read old journals and I'm like, wow, I felt that way. Like it's great to see yourself like evolving in that way because sometimes you're just so right in the beginning. Great, now that I can do that 100,000 things, I'm now focused on the one thing that I cannot do, and I'm just going to focus on this, you know? So you're not giving yourself credit for everything you're learning. You know, I'm a male and I just lost my right leg to diabetes and I'm in a wheelchair too, and it's not an easy life to be in a wheelchair. No, by no means do I think it's easy. You know, I still think having a disability sucks, but that's not my whole life. You know, I think life is hard in general. So you're going to be thrown obstacles. That's where you grow. And unfortunately in this life, it's like pick your struggle and don't let it get you down because a lot of people do, you know, regardless of what it is. You're alive, like you have the opportunity to keep on smiling, and I think that that's something that I'm focusing on. And again, that's a great perspective change because before I was like, why does life hate me? Like, what is wrong? You know, and I like couldn't find my right shoe and it was gonna be okay. Adjusting to life in a wheelchair is a challenge. These ladies have so much great advice. Oh, thank you, Leah. Okay, so great going into perspective. That is our next question. How do you feel like your life and perspective has evolved since getting injured? And explain the biggest difference in your shifts. So Jessica, what would you say your biggest difference from like who you were before to now, like, would you say?
I think the biggest difference is a lot more calmness. And it's pretty interesting because I think that obviously comes from being able-bodied to being a quad, right? There has to be, or there doesn't have to be, but for me, there was a place where, you know, I could get mad for the rest of my life about everything I couldn't do and my lack of independence, or I could just start working on acceptance and, you know, finding what I can do on my own, how much I can actually push myself, how to adapt. I was very against any adaptations at the beginning just because I was very very much a believer that I was gonna walk again, I was gonna be able to use my hands again. And so it really reminding myself that, okay, even if I can walk tomorrow, today I can't, right? And so what will help me today? And so I think that started that shift for me where I became more calm. I found more peace in just waiting. I wasn't a very patient person at this point in my life, though I think that it's also had to do with age. I've gotten older. I'm a therapist, so I've learned so much about, our mental health and choosing our battles, in our own mind. Am I going to fight the fact that I don't want to change, or am I going to work on the change that needs to be made? And which one's going to be more beneficial for me? And really challenging myself to let go of the way things, quote unquote, should be. um, Not being so reactive. I was very reactive before my injury. Obviously, I was younger too. I think with age and time, I've grown, and the biggest shift has been just learning not to be so reactive and to be more at peace and calm. Um, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not myself anymore, right? I think sometimes there was a fear that if I keep shifting this direction, am I still myself? And the reality is that we're never going to be the same person that we were. It doesn't matter if you have an injury or not, but we're constantly changing and evolving as people. So definitely at this point in my life, I'm not going to battle things I would have fought when I was 20. And I think that's been the biggest shift.
Mhm. That's a great way to look at it because I think like even like able-bodied mothers, able-bodied like people that are even getting older, you always can look back and like what ifs and dream and hope and be hard on yourself, or you can love your now self and keep on going and see how you can now be different so that your future self doesn't have those same regrets. What about you, Maya? How do you feel like your life has and perspective has changed? What's your biggest shift?
I feel like, I mean, obviously, since before I got injured, not being on drugs, that's a great shift. For that one, I really like it. But no, jokes aside, like from my newly injured self and who I am now, like 6 years later, I feel like some big shifts have been like boundary setting and just like my perspective and outlook on life. I remember wondering like if my disability was a punishment, like going down that road. And since I like had a church community and been able to ask questions and talk to other people and have a better relationship with God, that perspective has shifted into understanding like that my disability has actually been my healing, and it's been like my safe haven from my addiction. I don't know how I would be if I was an able-bodied person, if my story didn't unfold the way that it did. And I think early on in my injury, I was super go, 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 go. I wanted to do everything. And now, since recently, since becoming a mother, actually, like I've been much more protective over like my peace and my space. And I haven't cared. Like if I felt like judgment from not going to something, or if I felt any sort of way, like I haven't truly cared about it. And that's been really freeing and refreshing for me. And like that's a completely different person than who I was before.
I love that so much. I feel like the biggest switch for me is definitely the joy focus. I feel like I was extremely negative before. Not to say that like I couldn't like give advice or uplift like somebody else, but just in general, like the way I talked to myself was very negative. The person inside of my head was not nice. Sometimes she's still not nice, but we're learning to be friends. And that was a big switch in for me. Before I was kind of like if you weren't in my inner circle, I did not care what you were doing, what you were going through, what was happening. Of course, like if it's a child on the street, I wasn't malicious, but somebody needing like help, like I would obviously help. I've always had a really big heart and like giving person, but just in general, I did not care. Like, and I would let you know, and people knew that I chose my friends. My friends did not choose me. Like, I would be just annoyed by everybody and everything that they talked about. I had a lot going on at home too, and I think that was hard. I was raised with a lot of trauma, and I think I didn't understand that until after my injury of how much I needed to really heal from that. So a lot of it was just me trying to survive, not really living. And now I make it a point to live instead of just trying to survive. Don't get me wrong, I have my bad days, but that's where it's okay. I learned like I don't need to stay in my bad days. Before, my bad days would last weeks, if not months sometimes. My depression can become extremely low. But now I tell myself, be angry, have a sad moment, but don't let it keep you down forever. And that is extremely different switch inside of my mind space for me. And it has really protected my peace a lot, like reminding myself of that. And just having faith that everything's going to be okay, even through the bad times. Because I even suffered with like a lot of suicidal thoughts before my injury. And that just like multitude those first 2 years of when I was injured. And now I have such a different perspective on like when things are going wrong inside of my life, or how easy I feel like life should come to me. Like before, I just assumed that I deserved everything. Like, why don't I have that? Why? But it's like, Brianna, nobody told you were gonna walk forever. Nobody told you were gonna have a giant house. Nobody told you that you were gonna have all the money in the world. Like, these are just things that you just assume that you deserve just because you said you wanted it. It's like, no, life doesn't work like that. Like, those people, it's so easy to look and say, oh, the grass is greener on the other side. And guess what? The people whose grass you're looking at, they think your grass is greener. Like, it 9 times out of 10, I promise you. So it's just not comparing my life to other people and their problems and what they're going through, or their growth, or their blessings, or their anything. It's focusing on the me and the now and what I can do to make myself happy today. And I think that is a ginormous switch in perspective from who I was before my injury. Dum-dum. Okay, so we're going to end it on advice for someone struggling or scared to embrace their new identity. So we all talked about those feelings, and like that kind of holding on to that past. And I've seen it keep people from joining the community. And let me tell you, most of the times once they finally get into it and get into this new role of life, they're like, why did I wait so long? I've heard it so many times, no matter when they come into the community, they feel like they should have come earlier, because of this reason. So Jessica, what would you say to somebody like that just got injured or diagnosed, and they're kind of in that teeter totter, not sure what to do?
Well, first of all, I think reminding yourself that yes, getting injured is catastrophic and one of the worst things that could happen to anyone, right? But at the same time, bad things happen to everyone, not just you. And change is inevitable. It's going to be required from you no matter where you are in life. And even as you change through this journey of being injured, you're also going to change for many other reasons, not just because you're injured. I think sometimes we think that the only reason we're changing is because we're injured. And sometimes we're changing because we're getting older. We're changing because we have new friends. We're changing because we got a new job. We're changing because we're shifting careers. And so change is inevitable. And bad things happen to everyone. So what I would recommend is think back to times when you've had to change, right? That could have been something simple like going from elementary school to junior high. You're not the kid from high school. You're not the kid from preschool. And so as you're changing in this journey and this injury, although the change is huge, right? At least physically, who you are at your core will always be who you are, but regardless of injury or not, you were going to have to change. So, reminding yourself that change is inevitable and that as hard as this injury is, bad things happen sometimes.
Yeah, so true. What about you, Maya? What would be your advice?
I would say, like, take your time and be kind to yourself. Like, I know, like Brianna said, like you always want to wish you could have done something different looking back. But I feel like in those moments, like take your time to grieve your body and to understand your new normal, to get out your feelings, to journal, to cry, you know, to find an outlet that will help you be able to change, to shift your new identity and to be able to accept it. Because it's not as easy, you know, and when you just dive into getting back to life, it ends up being a distraction. At least in my experience, it was a big distraction, and I had that breakdown 2 years later. So definitely taking your time would be my advice.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's so important. Like, not comparing your journey to other people's journeys too. Sometimes it's easy to look and see, like, why am I not getting it down like them? You know? But we're all different people. We're all extremely unique, even though we have a disability that ties us together. We're all our own individual people. And we say, like, we're like snowflakes. Everybody's so different. You know, there's people that could get injured in the same way and the same level and still be different. And same for diagnosis, you know? And I think these moments, those beginning months, are like really a blessing of being able to kind of purge that old version of yourself. Because there's so many people like that like wish that they just had that break to completely transform themselves, but they won't. Like they don't give themselves the opportunity to. They're so scared to change that it would be too hard on them to completely change their who they are in their routine for no reason, just out of the normal, you know? And so I really feel like it's a blessing in disguise that we have this moment to reinvent ourselves and really become who we want to become, you know, and make a new identity and journal and see who you would want to be, what kind of friend you want to be, what kind of spouse you want to be, what kind of family member you want to be, and see what areas you can grow in. And, you know, like start out slow and realize like it doesn't need to be a giant change over time. This happens by like little changes over time. And before you know it, it just becomes who you are, you know? And there's gonna be those days where you're just like, oh, I can't wait to just be free, to just accept it. I remember I wanted it so bad, and my mom would tell me like, Brianna, you just need to accept it. And I'll be like, hey, being accept, like it's not that easy, you know? Like how am I gonna do that? What do I do? And it's just by doing these slowly little things, not tackling it all at once. You know, lists are really important to me. I really feel like lists changed my life because I'd be writing lists left and right. Sometimes it's as easy to just see what you need to get done and cross it off. You know, it's just very helpful. And that's even through an app. I use Color Note. For anybody who has Android out there, I love Color Note. I just get to organize all my notes in colors and checklists, and it's so much fun. And small goals. Small goals are important. Sometimes it's easy to be like, where are you going to be in 5 years? Where are you going to be in 5 minutes? What is your goal right now? You know, and how can I get over a small goal? Sometimes also we want to make really big goal changes that are not easy to achieve. And I think that gets us down to like we need to stop. We need to make like a time frame. It needs to be obtainable to get to that goal, right? Because then it can have the opposite effect. You know, if I'm like my goal is to start jumping by next week, obviously I'm gonna let myself down because I'm not gonna be jumping by next week, no matter how hard I try. You know, but if I say I'm gonna wash 5 dishes today, I'm gonna wipe down the counter. I'm gonna try to empty my catheter. I'm gonna get out of bed by myself. I'm gonna transfer today, or I'm gonna try to take a shower today. Like those little things, they have made me feel so proud of myself after finishing those tiny things. Sometimes where you just keep on wanting to tell yourself that you can't do something, and then like switching it to like, oh, maybe I can. When I started doing that, I was really impressed with myself and what I could do, honestly, because before I was like, I can't reach it, can't do it, can't nothing. And then I was like, I remember an alarm was going off one time. I was transferred on the couch. I was at my boyfriend's parents' house. They all left for Black Friday, and the alarm was just ringing, and I was like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna get to the alarm? It won't shut up. And I decided to transfer, and I went to go turn it off, and I was like so proud of myself. I started crying all by myself. I was like, dang, I would have not done that if no one was here. So that's another thing. But yeah, that would be my advice. Tell them you're still the same person. You just have to live a new normal, and that's a huge inconvenience. Yes, it's definitely a battle, like to explain that to other people. But I feel like that's a whole nother ball game of like helping them see how different and how the same you are. I realize with family members and stuff, it's not as easy. Sometimes I want them to just like get it, but they don't. Unfortunately, it takes a little bit more like learning with them and stuff like that, and teaching them the difference between of like how hard the disability can be, but how much I still love my community. How some days I can be stronger than the other days. How some days I can be more in pain than other days. You know, they still laugh at me when I say a small movement causes me pain. I was like they don't realize like this reach to this reach like is a stretch in my back. And they just do not understand it, and they're like, okay, I was so sure. There's so much like that's hard, and like my emotions sometimes I need to just let them know like I'm feeling more irritated because of my pain or something like that. In the beginning it was like those little things of like you're acting different, well maybe just because I'm dealing with all these other UTIs and nausea and like having to take my medicine and my bladder and my bowels and all these other things that they're not even thinking of, you know. So gratitude both ways. Have compassion, I would say, on both sides. Have a conversation with your family when you're ready, you know, and just draw those boundaries for what you feel comfortable talking about or doing or asking for help. Any other thoughts, ladies?
No. Keep on pushing on.
Huh? What'd you say, Jessica?
Oh, I just said keep on pushing on.
Oh, yeah. Keep on pushing on. We got this. Thank you guys so much for joining. Make sure that you guys check out our sponsors, mobility professionals and urology professionals. They're absolutely wonderful in what they do. So make sure that you go and check them out. They do a lot for us and the role, and they help us keep on going. And they do not disappoint. That's from personal experience. On Monday, we have gaming with How Wheels. Make sure to check that out. On Tuesday, the guys come with different topics every single week, so make sure you tune in on Tuesday at 3:30. On Wednesday, we have gaming with T Fizzle. Make sure to check him out. And on Thursdays, we have a couple different shows going. On the second and fourth Thursday, we have Rolling Over the Hill with the guys. On the first Thursday, we have Rolling with the Golden Oldies. And then on the third Thursday, we have the Will Girl Talk with us. Make sure to come back and check us out. And those are all of our shows for the week. So make sure you turn on your notifications. If you hit the bell, it will let you guys know 30 minutes before we go live and then when we go live, so that you can be in tune with us. Make sure that even if you can't watch the full live, you can leave a comment or a little like for us. It really helps with our algorithm, and we appreciate the love so much. Make sure you keep on pushing on and live to roll. Bye, guys.